Good afternoon, meteorologist Mike Linden here, coming at you live from the MyRadar studio right here in Orlando, Florida. A bit of breaking news. The National Hurricane Center expects Tropical Storm Elsa to now reach Category 1 status before making landfall sometime early tomorrow, that being Wednesday morning, near Cedar Key, Florida. Again, good afternoon. I'm meteorologist Mike Linden. Let's jump right into the MyRadar app and take a look at the latest. I should also mention, if you are watching, wherever you are watching from, let us know in the chat wherever you are watching. Let us know again where you are watching from, and if you have any questions for myself or for Chief Digital Meteorologist Leslie Hudson, who will be in shortly to kick off our live stream at 5 o'clock Eastern to give you the very latest on soon-to-be Hurricane Elsa. Get your questions in to Leslie as well. All right, so let's jump into the app here. I've got it pulled up in front of me. I've got the hurricane tracker layer turned on. Now, this is a premium feature in the layers menu here, the hurricane tracker, but on the free version of the app, you will still be able to see the location of tropical cyclones. So let's jump right in here, take a look at the cone. I'm going to zoom out here, and you'll see that the NHC expects Elsa to become a Category 1 hurricane, at least at some point prior to midnight tonight. You can see the timestamp there, before making landfall just right around noon. Again, there's Cedar Key, Florida, right there, which is just to the north of Tampa, not far from Tampa St. Pete. And that is where, at least for right now, landfall is anticipated. Remember, you don't necessarily want to go by the center line there. You want to go by the entire cone. So everything within that cone from the NHC is still in play. And a lot could change here over the next couple of hours. It wasn't too long ago that I was talking to you about the structure of Tropical Storm Elsa looking still rather disorganized, but that's the Gulf of Mexico for you. I mean, it is incredibly warm, and it is a very conducive environment for tropical cyclone development, and that is exactly what we are seeing so far this afternoon and will continue to see over the next couple of hours and into early tomorrow. Now, let's take another live look out here. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to turn the hurricane tracker layer off for a moment. And right now it looks like a bit of a paint by number across the Sunshine State of Florida. Let's just take a look here. The yellow colors, those are tornado watches. We've already seen some tornado-warned storms across South Florida, and this is to be expected in and around tropical storms and hurricanes. As we know, that right front quadrant of these cyclones is where we are likely to find any severe thunderstorms and tornadoes, at least more than likely. And we've already seen that so far this afternoon. Now, you can see that red color that extends pretty far inland. That is a tropical storm warning. And if I tap on this, you'll see that this is going to remain in effect likely through tomorrow afternoon. This was extended. This is all the information from the National Weather Service here. So it says remain in effect here. Last I saw, I believe it's until, there you go, early Wednesday morning until Wednesday afternoon is when the window of those tropical storm force winds will be. Again, just short of noon is when landfall is anticipated near Cedar Key, and that will extend into inland Florida, all the way up pretty much to the southern edge of Georgia there, crossing over into the Tifton area there. Not under a tropical storm warning just yet, but it is certainly likely that we may see that extend inland. Now, you see this pink color that extends from Crawfordville there all the way south and into Tampa. If we tap on that, that is not only the storm surge warning, which is in effect underneath it. There's a lot going on right now, but that is a hurricane watch. And this you can see ongoing there, the information being pretty much the similar window of time to that tropical storm warning, although this is a hurricane watch. Again, winds above 74 miles per hour. That's the threshold. We need the winds to be sustained at that point in order for it to be deemed a Category 1, and we are well on our way. So if I zoom down here, you can see that the structure of Elsa starting to come a little bit together now. The center of circulation is still right around here on the map, whereas that big shield of precipitation is still kind of lashing South Florida. The Florida Keys kind of got the real brunt of that early this morning, and not necessarily to say that the western coastline of Florida is can't deal with things like this. It just doesn't happen as often. Typically, we see tropical cyclones impacting South Florida and the eastern coastline of Florida. It's not too often that it works its way in and along the western coastline of Florida. Of course, I would imagine you remember Category 5 Hurricane Michael a couple of years ago impacting the Mexico City Beach, Panama City area of Florida, right up and in here. This is not the same. This storm is not made up of the same gravy whatsoever here, although the only similarity being that it will strike the western coastline of Florida. Now, we will continue to monitor the developments of Elsa here, and one thing I want to show you here, this is another premium feature, the per station radar. With this, we're able to tap on an individual radar site and get an in-depth look at what is going on. Right now, I have reflectivity turned on. You can see on the right-hand side there. Oh, it looks like we've lost the connection to the app here on this iPad. Let me jump right back in here. All right, so really what we're going to be monitoring here is the potential for tornadic development, especially across South Florida, and that is definitely something that is expected in a situation like this. It seems as if we may need to restart the connection back there, Damien. Oh, it seems like I'm connected again. Just let me know if we're good to go. There it is. Okay. Gotta love live productions, right? These things can happen. But again, looking at this per station radar feature, as you'll see here in a moment, we're able to not only look at reflectivity, see there on the right-hand side, the raindrops, that's showing us precipitation. But right underneath it, that is velocity, the squiggles there, which is going to show us winds going toward and away from the radar site. Green representing winds going toward the radar site, and red representing winds going away from it. So when you're looking at velocity here, it's a good way to be able to watch for any potential rotation in the environment here. So that is what meteorologists, especially at these National Weather Service offices, are looking at when they are looking at the potential for rotation. You'll also see there those blue boxes. That is a brand new feature to the MyRadar app. I'm going to tap on that so you can see. These are power outages. You can turn that on by tapping on the layers menu. It looks like that stack of cards on the toolbar, and it's right there on the bottom. All you have to do is toggle it on, and this will give you power outage information. Not only how many customers are affected, but the number of customers within that particular region and the utilities that are affected. So this is a super helpful tool if you happen to live in an area where maybe people around you are losing power, and it's a good way to really know that. You want to certainly have your hurricane plan ready to rock. For people that live in Florida, this is nothing new really, but again, it's a good reminder to just be sure that you have your supplies ready to go. I brought it with me here. Let me see if I can find it in my backpack here. Stand by here, Damien. fell to the bottom of my backpack. Here we go. If you want to take me on camera, I can't recommend one of these enough. This is a mobile power bank. We live in an age where pretty much everybody has a device that can be powered by USB, whether it be a smartphone, a tablet, what have you. And with one of these, this particular model, I think can charge a smartphone like up to like 6 or 7 times. So if you happen to lose power and you don't have a generator, having something like this could really be a pretty helpful tool for you to keep your means of communication, especially to emergency management and emergency officials, active. So I can't recommend one of these things enough. All right, so Damien, let's take a look here at these graphics that I have prepared. Again, I should mention, I'm going to look at the comments here in a moment, so let me know where you're watching from, and if you have any questions for me. I should also remind you that coming up at 5 o'clock Eastern, Chief Digital Meteorologist Leslie Hudson will be here in studio for our weekly midday update show that we do every Tuesday at 5 o'clock Eastern. Of course, it's going to be a little different today, being that we are talking about a tropical storm potentially about to become our first landfalling hurricane to strike the United States this season, early July, right? Wild stuff. All right, so let's take a look here at the graphics that I have prepared, Damien. This is the tropical infrared imagery. We're looking at, of course, now satellite imagery. And really what I want you to pay attention to is that big dark red blob there. This is really where we are seeing the convection beginning to really organize. What that's representing are some really tall storms here. So around the center of circulation, which is still, we're not seeing a well-defined eye really at any point in this loop, whether or not that is going to be the case. You don't have to have one, for the record, clearly defined here to reach that hurricane status. But that is what we are going to be watching for here over these next couple of hours and into tomorrow, and that eye could become a lot more visible here. But that center of circulation, still kind of a big mess, but nonetheless we're seeing this big shield of precipitation that is absolutely showing us that organized convection, being that vertical motion of the moisture there. That's, of course, what you need in order for thunderstorms to continue to build. And earlier this morning, when I came to you live, it was still passing over portions of Cuba there. So the mountains kind of working to chop up that storm in the mid-levels. But now it's kind of home free here in the Gulf of Mexico to stretch out and get nice and strong. It's like waking up in the morning, being able to throw those blankets off of you. There's really nothing limiting the development anymore at this point. As you'll soon see, there's not even much shear or dry air that could impact this. So we're looking at the live sweeping radar here. Again, it's a big mess across most of Florida right now. The red color there encompassing Tampa and portions of South Florida. That is a tornado watch that is going to remain in effect through this evening. Look at the time there, 11 o'clock tonight. And then up north, that pink color that is in portion for the coastline, that is your hurricane warning. Notice it is expected to stick with us through Friday. We'll see if that gets canceled early, but again, it's definitely something that we will be watching very, very closely here over the next several hours. And then, of course, that purple color there, that is a tropical storm warning set to affect most of the inland counties as Elsa makes landfall tomorrow. Go figure that a storm named Elsa is trying to get as close to Disney World as possible. Looks like it's not going to impact Orlando and Central Florida all that much, but you can see that those tropical storm force winds are beginning to work their way inland, or at least the watches and warnings, that is. So right now, you're looking at the state of Florida from Key West all the way to the Panhandle. There are tropical storm warnings in place as Elsa rides the western coastline. But then if we zoom in there you can see the hurricane warnings that are in place from Tampa, the watches all the way in place up to near that Cedar Key area. Let me grab my pointer here. So stretching from Tampa, St. Pete, all the way northward here. The greatest impacts that we're paying close attention to here will be the heavy rain and the storm surge. Remember, you have essentially, let me grab my my tool here, the arrow. You have all of these winds rushing in as this thing rotates counterclockwise, forcing in all of that energy onto the coastline there. So storm surge going to be a big player here for the western coastline of the state. Let's look at the 3D model here, and you can really see, again, that convection still kind of out ahead of the center of circulation there, but nonetheless getting organized very quickly here in the Gulf of Mexico. I like to liken it to taking a pot of boiling water and putting it onto a stove that's already turned on. It's not like there's going to be a great loss of energy here. So once this thing worked its way into the Gulf of Mexico, I mean, if you've ever been to anywhere, any beach along the western coastline of Florida, the panhandle of Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, or even Texas, you know that the Gulf of Mexico water is fairly warm this time of year. And we're going to look at that in just a moment. But this is the water vapor imagery that I'm showing you here. And if I grab my tool here to draw, here's the dry air. I mean, it's over Texas. So it's not like this storm is getting a bunch of dry air sucked into it to impede its development in the mid and upper levels. So it's kind of exactly what Elsa wants here in terms of the strengthening, and way ahead of schedule. That is what we are watching here this afternoon, the potential for it to become a hurricane, a Category 1 hurricane. Still not yet, still a tropical storm, but it is very likely that we will see that turn over here in the next few hours and into early tomorrow morning. I mentioned the sea surface temperatures. Let's take a look at that here. These are some warm waters, folks, the mid to low 80s. I mean, very warm. Look at the west or the eastern coastline of Florida there, just off of the Space Coast. That's that little notch, Cape Canaveral. 80 degrees. A 5-degree difference is a lot, folks. I mean, a significant amount. So for the water to already be this warm, the stage is set for this thing to get nice and strong and get a lot of juice. Remember, these storms want to be over warm water. They do not want to be over land. Water is what they like. So they weaken very quickly when they are over land. But right now, Elsa is over open water. The precipitation is certainly slamming into Florida, bringing with it a lot of heavy rain to portions of South Florida and the Florida Keys. But that center of circulation still remains off the coastline, and that is what is allowing it to just... It's like hooking up a hose into the Gulf of Mexico, and the other end of the hose is over Florida, just dumping rain. Here is the official cone from the National Hurricane Center. Again, you can see this in the MyRadar app if you have the premium features unlocked. But here is a look at them. Expected to be a Category 1 hurricane off the western coastline of Florida by 8 o'clock this evening, if not earlier than that. By early tomorrow morning, look at that time, 8 a.m. From somewhere between 8 and noon tomorrow is kind of that key window of time that we'll be watching very closely for a potential landfall for Elsa as a Category 1 hurricane near Cedar Key, Florida. As it works its way inland, weakening to a tropical storm by the time it passes over Savannah, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, and then weakening to a tropical depression by Thursday evening, kind of over the Myrtle Beach area. But remember, they don't call it the low country for nothing over South Carolina. We're talking low elevations that are close to, if not below, sea level that can result in some inland flooding. So again, we're going to take a closer look here. This is the cone. Remember, that red line is just there for guidance. You want to be looking in that entire cone. Anywhere within that cone is in play. Of course, it shrinks as the time approaches what those timestamps are, as the likelihood continues to shrink. But for anyone that lives in that cone, and that does include Tampa, St. Pete, you need to have your hurricane plan ready to go. I mean, I don't want to come on here and scare you, but it's always good to be prepared. What is the expression? Fail to prepare and then prepare to fail, right? Just be sure that you have those power banks charged up, ready to rock. You have your hurricane kit with food and water in case you're to lose power. Don't forget about the pets as well. Pack some cat food, dog food, whatever your pet is. Be sure that you're ready to go. Again, just a Category 1. 74 mile per hour winds is that threshold, and notice there 75 miles per hour, so just over the line. We're talking just over the line here. Let's advance out a little bit more and widen out the view here. Interestingly enough, the National Hurricane Center expects Elsa to strengthen once again to a tropical storm just off of the coastline there of New York City, Philadelphia, New Jersey, the Delmarva Peninsula. So, of course, people vacationing up near Ocean City, Maryland as well could be impacted by Elsa later this week. All right, now let's look at the storm surge, a storm surge watch in effect almost for the entire western coastline of the Sunshine State, from Bonita Springs through to Port Charlotte, Tampa, St. Pete, all the way up to Horseshoe Beach. But then we see that storm surge warning that extends from Horseshoe Beach up and into Cedar Key and pretty much onto the Gulf Coast of Florida. In terms of the amount of storm surge expected, anywhere between 1 to 3 feet for South Florida, extending up to about 3 to 5 feet as you work your way up toward where Elsa is potentially going to be making landfall early tomorrow afternoon. So remember, storm surge is water being pushed from, essentially being pushed onto the coastline, stacking up to the point where it's 3 to 5 feet above where it should be normally. So think if you're 6 feet tall, we're talking water potentially up to your chin, right? Where it shouldn't be normally. So, of course, all of the beaches set to be impacted by this along the western coastline of Florida. If you live along the western coast of Florida, just certainly something to keep in mind as storm surge is expected with this forecast. It's going to be the storm surge and the heavy rains that we will be watching very closely here. So let's take a look at a model run. This is the HRRR, the High Resolution Rapid Refresh model, meaning it's going to give us a new outcome every single hour. It only goes out a limited amount of time to give us really detailed information here. This is not, keep in mind, a forecast. I'm simply showing you this to kind of give you an idea. This is just one of the many, many models that meteorologists, forecasters are looking at when making a decision. So this is one particular model that happens to give us high resolution imagery where we can even see individual thunderstorm cells there. And notice the time that I paused this, around 8:30 this evening. Let me grab my pointer tool. Elsa in and of itself is still rather long in terms of its shape. It's not that tightly wound storm, but this is the kind of where that center of circulation would be. But something to keep in mind, it's right up here where we're going to see those bands coming inland, forcing the water inland, bringing with it the potential, again, for tornadic development. I talked about this before, but if we divide a tropical cyclone, a hurricane, tropical storm, into 4 quadrants, the right front quadrant right here, that is where you are going to find the strongest winds as well as the potential for tornadic development. You could still see tornadoes elsewhere, even down here in the right rear quadrant. But typically where that X is where you are likely to see severe thunderstorms and tornado-warned storms. So something to keep in mind, that if you are in that right front quadrant, that is where you are expected to see kind of the real brunt of a tropical cyclone. Let's advance this out a little bit more. Notice the time here, 3 o'clock in the morning. So a lot of people likely going to be asleep at this point. So if you live, again, in Tampa, St. Pete, remember, you are still in the cone, even though landfall is expected north of you. I mean, we're talking some heavy rain bands passing right over you, as well as some rather gusty winds. So if you, again, live in this area, be sure that you are enacting your hurricane plan. But again, there's that center of circulation trying to remain over water. That's what Elsa wants to do here. But those bands really pushing onshore, even for folks that live in Orlando, like us here, or even in Melbourne, Florida, along the Space Coast, could be looking at some heavier rain to wake up to early tomorrow morning. And that could make driving rather hazardous heading into early tomorrow morning. Let's advance out a little bit more. There's your landfall, or at least really close to it. Again, between 8 and noon tomorrow morning. That's what models are cluing us into. That's what the National Hurricane Center expects as well. And then if I continue to advance this, notice as we head into Wednesday afternoon, it kind of starts to lose that shape, but you are still seeing those bands kind of clearly defined here on the model, which just goes to show you, again, just because the center of circulation remains over land at this point, you could still be looking at some rather nasty thunderstorms coming in over central Florida. The heavy precipitation continues to push northward, at this point potentially weakening to a low-end tropical storm, potentially even a tropical depression at this point by Wednesday evening. And then as we head into Thursday, you can see kind of trying to hug the coastline. Remember, it wants to be over water, and that, if this were to verify here on the model, right here along the South Carolina coastline, you could be looking at, again, some heavier rains and potentially some inland flooding too. In terms of the amount of precipitation here over the next 3 days, no need to water the plants, we'll put it that way. Potentially upwards of 5 to 7 inches of rain for that orange color stretching from Fort Myers, Florida, right here, upwards through to Tampa, St. Pete, and right here, up near Cedar Key, Florida. 5 to 7 inches of rain here over the next 3 days. It's already been raining a lot in Florida, so more of it on top of that could absolutely make for saturated ground. On top of that, tropical storm, potentially hurricane force winds, and that could take out some weaker, smaller trees. Definitely something to watch for. 3 to 5 inches of precipitation expected for inland northern Florida here, right along the Georgia-Florida border there. And then in terms of that tropical storm force winds, remember, this could very well be a hurricane at that point. And this is pretty much showing us the likelihood of those winds arriving. And again, look at the time there. Pretty much from now into tomorrow afternoon, it is going to be a blustery period for folks that live along that western coastline of the state. So let's jump back here to the radar, or to the satellite imagery, I should say. But Damien, if you want to switch to the app here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at your comments. If you guys have any questions for me now, please let me know. Let me know where you are watching from. I will try my best to answer as many of them as I can. Again, we have a live show that we are preparing for at 5 o'clock this afternoon with Chief Meteorologist Leslie Hudson. I kind of often say that the National Hurricane Center folks and the folks at the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, they're like the Navy SEALs of severe weather and tropical weather forecasting. Well, we happen to have one of our own Navy SEALs of tropical forecasting here on the team, that being Chief Digital Meteorologist Leslie Hudson. And she, again, will be in at 5 o'clock. So if you have any questions for Leslie, get them in the chat. You can ask us across all of our social media platforms. You can see them over my head here: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch. We are everywhere nowadays, so be sure to get your questions in, and Leslie will try to answer them later on. And then, of course, we will be back with live coverage early tomorrow morning. You'll probably see me early tomorrow morning, and then Leslie and meteorologist Jamie Martin will be coming in tomorrow to assist in team coverage. All right, so let me look at some of your questions here. I hope you are all doing well here after a long holiday weekend, and I hope that, of course, that you are safe as well. All right, so we've got a lot of people watching in Florida. What up, Aaron in Clearwater, Summerfield, Florida? We got Ron in Ontario, Canada. Hey, Elsa's not going to affect you all that much up there. We got Vanessa in Tampa. Some folks watching from Ohio, Jacksonville, Illinois, Tallahassee, Ocala, Port Charlotte, West Palm Beach. Yeah, a lot of Floridians, of course. Totally makes sense. Venice, Florida, Oak, Florida. We got CJ in Orlando. What up? Oh, we've got someone with a great tip here. You can also use power tool batteries to charge phones. I mean, I wouldn't recommend trying something that you don't know if it works or not. But hey, if that works for you, hey, that's awesome. Again, I can't recommend these power banks enough. Damien, if you want to leave up the radar too, just so we have something to look at other than myself. Let's throw up the radar. Sweet. So again, these mobile power banks, these are great. Can't recommend these enough. Just be sure, of course, that you charge them now. If you are to lose power, this ain't going to do you much good if it's not charged up. But anything that plugs in via USB, you can charge with one of those. Might be a little tough for good old Jeff Bezos to get one of them to you here in a short period of time, but I know that Best Buy, Walmart, all those retailers happen to sell them. Of course, a NOAA weather radio also going to be very helpful in a situation like this. If you were to lose power, those can still, at least until you lose power, give you emergency information there. Most of them do have battery backups as well. Let's see what else we've got. We got William in Delaware. Again, William could be looking at Elsa becoming a tropical storm as it works its way up to the Delmarva Peninsula here. We got CJ asking, do you think it's possible this could strengthen into a hurricane again? You mean after making landfall? I mean, it's possible, but probably pretty unlikely at that point. Likely being significantly weaker. Let's see. So someone asking, wish this could go west more and not become hurricane level. Hey, if it were to go west, that means more time in the Gulf of Mexico. That means more time to develop. So not ideal. Really, anything getting into the Gulf of Mexico is not a fun situation considering how warm the water is. Someone asking here. Yeah, so someone's saying that they have the hurricane tracker and it's showing category 1. It is not. unless you're breaking some news to me. Nope. Right now, 69-mile-per-hour winds, which is still tropical storm force winds. Again, 74 miles per hour, and it needs to sustain it. It can't just hit it. It needs to sustain those winds for at least a minute. That is when it will be classified as a Category 1 hurricane. We're not there yet. And if I zoom out here, yeah, the NHC doesn't have it becoming a hurricane again after having made landfall early tomorrow afternoon. Let's see what else we have here. Got D watching from New Jersey. Shout out to D. It's kind of my old stomping grounds. I grew up on the border of New York, New Jersey. So shout out to the tri-state area. What else we have here? Apollo Beach. What's going on? A bunch of St. Petersburg and Tampa areas. And hey, we have someone watching from Disney World right now. Hey, the most magical place on earth, right? Probably pretty wet right now. And hey, I know good old Mickey there will sell you a poncho if you didn't bring one. What else we have here? And so we'll end on this. Bobby on Facebook asking, is it expected to stay on the track it's currently on? That is a great question. And a lot of people, when they see the cone here, they tend to just look at this center line, and that's what they go by. That's not necessarily the case. The center line there, it kind of just meant to show you the average of what the possibilities would be. It's meant to really just kind of split the cone right down the middle there. But it's not called the cone of uncertainty for nothing. Anything within that cone is a possibility for it to shift west or east. So right here, you can see that the center line early tomorrow morning is west of Clearwater and St. Petersburg, right? But you're still within the cone. So it's very possible that not only will you feel hurricane-force winds tomorrow, but you may also, I don't want to say it's unlikely, but you could potentially see a landfall there as you are within the cone. Regardless, you are likely to be impacted in some way by Elsa into tomorrow. That's why you're in the cone, so you need to be prepared for that. And again, that's where Elsa is expected to kind of make the turn there up near Cedar Key, and that is where, at least right now, hurricane warnings are in effect and will remain that way here for the next couple of days, right there for Cedar Key. That is where landfall, at least right now, is expected to the west of Crystal River there, north of Inglis, and up near Cedar Key. That's kind of where the NHC right now is expecting this to make landfall early tomorrow afternoon. But a very close call to Tampa St. Pete, likely to push a lot of water onto the coastline too. Of course, that's when we're talking about storm surge, so you need to have your preps ready now. Someone says if you're at Disney, hide in Cinderella's castle for protection. Hey, it certainly will protect you from the rain. That's for sure. Someone asking, what is the radar that I'm using? Hey, this is the MyRadar app. This is the per station radar feature, which is a premium feature. You can change the radar here from classic to high def. You can look at the temperature map. And what I'm looking at there is per station. From there, you can tap on radar sites. We have several of them all across the world. We are expanding coverage all the time. You can see the ones that are out there in red. But right now, we are concerned with what's going on in Florida. So we'll tap on this one here near Miami. And that is going to give you not only the reflectivity, but you can change it to velocity. So you can see potential rotation. And then you can change the tilt of the radar beam there to 3 different levels. So that is, again, a premium feature. If you do not have that, the high def is still awesome, and you'll be able to, and the classic, again, that's the beauty of the MyRadar app. It's super customizable, and we'll show you whatever you want it to. Lest I forget to show you the winds here. We can look at the surface winds and the winds upstairs at 500 millibars. This is certainly an indication of where that central circulation is, right, with the winds at the surface. And then let me show you the winds upstairs, the jet stream, so you can see. Imagine it like a marionette, right? So we have the winds even in the upper levels, very close to the surface winds there. And again, that is kind of amplifying this storm. And there you can see that in the winds coming on shore there. And those are the winds high up, folks, 500 millibars, right? So Elsa not really going much of anywhere here just yet. So for the folks in Florida, it's nothing new to you, right? But it is certainly the first of the season. All right, so I think that's probably it for me. Again, Chief Digital Meteorologist Leslie Hudson will be in at 5 o'clock this afternoon for our midday update live show. Of course, we're going to be talking more about what could be at that point Hurricane Elsa. We will be watching things very, very closely. You can see at the bottom of the screen here our social media information. Be sure to follow us across all of them for the latest information. Facebook, Twitter. We go live on YouTube and, of course, in our app as well. If you are watching on YouTube and you are not subscribed, click on that subscribe button and click on the like button, that thumbs up. It really helps us out a lot. And be sure to turn on those notifications by clicking on that little bell so you always know whenever we drop a new video or, of course, whenever we go live for something like this. Okay, I think I've covered just about everything in terms of housekeeping. Again, Chief Digital Meteorologist Leslie Hudson will be here at 5 o'clock in a little under 2 hours for our midday update live show. From all of us here on MyRadar, for Damian and Chris and Matt, I just saw him walk in not too long ago in the back. Thank you again for watching. Stay safe and stay dry. We'll catch you back here in the next one. See ya.